Centered on Faith Sunday morning message. Um, we thank God for you being with us. We thank God for all of our visitors who are going to be joining us on this morning. We thank God for you, Centered on Faith, and your continued faithfulness and diligence as we continue in this time of streaming our services online via our Facebook page and our YouTube page. So we would ask that if you are new to Centered on Faith, if this is your first time visiting with us on a Sunday morning, if this is your first time tuning into us, go to our YouTube page, subscribe. That way, every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. and every Thursday at 7 p.m., you would be able to catch us there. If you don't want to go onto your Facebook app, and watch stream us there. And if you know somebody who does not have Facebook and they do have YouTube because they have a smartphone, have them go and subscribe to our YouTube channel because we stream there as well. Again, we thank God for each and every one of you on this morning. We bless God for you joining us. We're going to give everybody just a couple of minutes, and then we're gonna get started with our Sunday morning message for today. If you will, go to 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 3 through 5. I'm going to be reading out of the American Standard Version because I believe it gives us um, the best account or the best wording and verbiage to be able to understand what is being discussed and what is being said this morning. So I'm going to be reading out of the American Standard Version again. And so we thank God for all of you joining us on today. All right. If you have it, 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 3 through 5, let's read. It says, "Now there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, and they said one to another, 'Why sit we here until we die? If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city. And if we shall die there, and if we sit still here, we die also. Now therefore come and let us fall unto the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live. And if they kill us, we shall but die.'" And I want to use, I'm sorry, verse number 5. "And they rose up in the twilight to go unto the camp of the Syrians. And when they were come to the outermost part of the camp of the Syrians, behold, there was no man there. There was no man there." I want to use for a thought today, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? As you know, and as you can see from the onset of the scripture reading, that there are 4 men. This story is about 4 men who had this skin disease called leprosy. These 4 men were in a very unique situation because they were all affected with the exact same skin disease. Leprosy was a skin illness that society at this particular time had no cure for. There was no cure, there was no remedy. There were things that they tried, there were things that the doctors tried to prescribe, there were things that they tried to go through in order to be able to recover and heal from this. And usually, when somebody healed or became healed from leprosy, it was considered somewhat of a marvel, somewhat of a miraculous type of event because very few people recovered from it. But during this time, there was no cure for what these men had. There was no solution to the problem. There was no resolute end. There was no future in sight for them. The only future that they had was to have to deal with this in isolation. And leprosy had a crippling effect emotionally on these particular men because when you had leprosy at this time, you were not allowed to be around your family. In fact, you had to leave your family and live in isolation. And if you didn't live in isolation, you lived amongst people who had the same issue that you had. Could you imagine having to uproot your life, to have to go live with people who are dealing with your exact same issue, who are struggling with your exact same situation, who are right where you are emotionally, because there is no fix for it, because no everybody has the same mentality, and that's this thing has got a grip on me and I can't get out of it. I know where I want to be. I know what I want to do. I know the life that I want to live, but emotionally I can't get there because I've been disconnected and detached from anything that I love and know. And so what we have here is we have these men who have been crippled emotionally because they've had to leave behind families, friends, and jobs and opportunity that they would have had they not had to deal with this particular illness that hit their life. It was devastating socially because the people who you really had a connection with, those are the people you could no longer be around. Those are the people you could no longer sit with. Those are the people that you can no longer converse with. Those are the people that you can no longer go out and have fun with. And so socially, they were hit hard because there were very few places they could go where they would actually be accepted. There was very few places they could go where people did not fear them. There were very few places they can go where people did not look at them funny and treat them different and walk the other way when they saw them. Because for a person who was a leper, when you approach somebody, you had to yell, unclean, unclean. Could you imagine being in a situation where you had to walk, and when people saw you, you had to tell them your issue. You had to tell them that you were unclean. You had to tell them not to come near. You had to tell them to stay away from you. Could you imagine being in a place where you wanted to approach people, but the people you wanted to approach, the people that you love, would run the other direction? Here it is. These men were devastated socially because they were not allowed to engage in the activities and the festivities that their counterparts and people who were not struggling were able to engage in. It was devastating socially. Psychologically, it was pulverizing. It beat them down mentally. It beat them down psychologically because they were trying to figure out ways to get out of this situation, ways to turn their situation around, ways to alter the course of their circumstances, ways to get out of something that most people did not recover from. A night in and night out, trying to figure out how every day is going to pan out, how every day is going to look, trying to figure out how you can recover yourself while going through the turmoil of your ordeal. But it fractured, watch this, the family foundation through separation. It fractured the family foundation through separation. The strongest aspect of any community is family. And so here it is. These men had to leave their family. If these men had family, if they had children, they had to leave their children behind to go and live in isolation. They had to leave their boys, their girls, so they would no longer be an instrumental part in their upbringing, teaching them how to be a man, teaching her what a real man is supposed to treat her like. They had this whole family foundation that was rocked and destroyed and severed because of what they were going through. People with leprosy didn't have a choice. See, today, we have a choice. It's not really a choice, but we can make up our own mind as to how we're going to social distance. Yes, they tell us to stay 6 feet apart. Yes, they tell us to give each other some room. Yes, they tell us not to go to each other's houses if we don't have to. Yes, they tell you to stay out of certain places if you don't have to. But the truth of the matter is, it's a suggestion to keep us safe, but most people don't always take that suggestion because there are still some people who have gatherings. There are still some people who ignore the social distancing requirement. But these men, they had no choice but to social distance. That it was against the law for them to be there. They could be killed for being somewhere that they had no business being. They could be killed simply because they had something that somebody else could have got, and they chose to go near them anyway. And so these men didn't have a choice but to socially distance themselves from the people that they wanted to be around the most. They were not allowed to be around people. They were not permitted to interact in the marketplace, and taking an economic hit even though it was beyond their control. They took an economic hit. They had to suffer because if they had jobs, they had to leave their jobs, which means bills didn't get paid because women usually didn't work. The men went out and made the money, but the women, they were the ones who took care of home. This is old school. I'm not talking about 2020, but here it is. These men and their families, they were devastated economically because the men were not able to work and provide for the families that they were supposed to take care of. And with all this going on, with all that is going on right now, we are not much different from them. Our situation is not that much different. For many of us, no, we haven't had COVID-19. We haven't contracted the coronavirus, but the threat is still there. For these men, unfortunately, they had something that other people were trying to avoid. But with all that is going on right now, we have to know that our situation is not much different. What we're going through is not much different. And knowing what it's like to be in adverse circumstances without a clear-cut resolution is where we are today. Many of us, we are in an adverse situation. All of us are experiencing some kind of adversity with no clear-cut resolution. The president don't know how to resolve it. The doctors don't know how to resolve it. The medical professionals across the board, they're scrambling, trying to figure out solutions. And we know what it's like for them to go through what they went through, because of all we have to do is look at ourselves and what we are going through at this moment in time. And we realize the same way they didn't have a resolve, the same way they didn't have a resolution, the same way there was no immediate end. It's the same thing with us. There's no immediate end in sight. There's no real resolution. There's no solving of this problem. And having to be separated from those closest to us, having to sit back, watching the economic aspect of people's lives be decimated beyond their control is a reality that we have to face today. It's a reality for the church, especially for those of us pastors who really love our members, because some of us are fielding phone calls that our members or their children or their family members are struggling and dealing with the coronavirus. They're going through this whole COVID-19 battle. We've seen many people, celebrities alike, who are dealing with this thing. We've seen family members perish and die as a result. But most importantly, or not necessarily most importantly, but one other key factor is we're watching families be decimated by the economic hit that is taking toll on the country and the world as a result of what's going on. We have family members and friends and associates who are losing their jobs. They can't afford to pay their rent or their mortgage. They can't afford to pay their car note. Some of them don't have money to buy food. So the schools and the churches and any other nonprofit organization is doing everything they can to help offset this problem with food and getting food to family members, all while seeing the frustration of trying to hold on mentally. Some of us have been in the house for I don't know how many days, and we're struggling to maintain our mind. We're struggling to keep it in the right place. We're frustrated because we're tired of looking at our own four walls. We don't want to keep looking at our own family members. We love them to death, but we want to get out and see something new. The frustration of having to sit in the house watching the same TV shows, reading the same books. There's only so much of that we can do, and we're frustrated mentally trying to hold on. And some of us are frustrated because we've been separated from worship services at physical locations. I don't know about you, but one thing I love to do is I love to come together with the people of God to worship our King, because he is worthy of our praise. And so some of us are struggling because, yeah, we love the live. We love being able to sit at home and watch our pastor and get a good word and be fed. But most of us like to come and worship. That's why the Bible says, forsake not the assembling of yourselves together. There's power in numbers. There's strength in numbers. And for many of us, the reason why we're frustrated, it's not because our families are the problem. It's not because our jobs are the issue. It's not because we don't have the money. It's because we want to get to worship. Many of us just want to get to worship, because worshiping with our brothers and sisters, that is something that is a unique bond that puts a strain on some of us because we love being around the people of God. And given all those facts, given everything that we have to consider, giving all that we've had to endure thus far, we are still positioned for something great. No matter how bleak, how disappointed, how frustrated we are, how upset we are, how confused we are at what's going on and what is transpiring in our life, the one fact that remains is as long as we got God on our side, we are still positioned for something great. We are still positioned for God to work something awesome in our life. We are still positioned to get what God has ordained for us. We are still positioned to make sure that we are in a place in God that we can have success in the midst of a storm. We are still positioned for greatness. Look at the text because the Bible says that these men, they were positioned or seated outside of the gate of the city. These men were quarantined outside of the city because they were contagious, starving for food without means to acquire it. How many of us are starving for something and we can't get out the house to get it? How many of us are starving for something, but we can't leave the house to go pursue it? How many of us are starving to see our vision come to fruition, but we can't leave the house to put the legwork in? How many of us are starving for that touch from our loved one, from that hug from our mother or our father who is elderly? How many of us crave to be in the presence of our children and we can't get it because we can't leave the house? How many of us are starving to get to a place where we really want to be positive, we really want to be progressive in what we're trying to do, but we can't leave the house, starving for the touch of loved ones without means to contact them, stuck between people who would kill them and the ones who might. That's where these men are. They're stuck between, should I go home and risk being killed, or should I stay here and go forward into an enemy's camp where they might kill me? They're stuck between people who would kill them and people who might. Some of us are stuck between would and might. I would do this, but this might happen. I would go here. This might happen. Some of us are stuck between who would and who might. These men are caught between the familiar and the far-fetched. It's familiar to go home. It's familiar to go back into the city. It's familiar to go back to my past. It's familiar to go back to what kicked me out. It's familiar to go back to what left me or what forsook me. It's familiar to go back, but it's far-fetched to proceed forward and leave everything else behind. It's far-fetched to pursue this vision even though I don't have the money for it. It's far-fetched to write the business plan even though I don't have people to help me promote it. It's far-fetched to go out and do something for somebody else in this time when I'm struggling. It's far-fetched to take a step of faith, to take that leap of faith, to pursue what I know God is pushing me towards because I don't know how it's going to turn out. I'm stuck in my familiar and my far-fetched. These men were stuck between probability and possibility. These men were stuck between probability and possibility. Probable being what is likely to occur or having more evidence for than against. When you look at these men and where they are, it's likely that if they go back into the city, they're going to be killed. And there's more evidence that supports going back into the city and being killed than staying where they are and having success. But it's possible they're also stuck between what's called possibility. And possibility has a root word of possible being something that may happen or can happen. In other words, these men are stuck between what is likely to happen and what may happen and what can happen. They're stuck between what the evidence that supports going into the city and being killed and what could happen if they just went the other direction and chose to move forward with their life. And that's where some of us are right now. Some of us are stuck between probability, what might happen, what's likely to occur, and possibility, what could happen if we took the necessary steps. Here it is. I need you to get this today. Don't remain stuck between probability and possibility. You know what's going to happen if you stay where you are, but you don't know what could happen if you chose to move forward. Choose to move forward with forgiveness. Choose to move forward with love. Choose to move forward with compassion, because what can happen far outweighs what's likely to happen. Possibility is always better than probability, because yes, it's probable, yes, it's likely, but when I have something that is possible, that means something great can happen, but I'll never achieve the greatness if I'm unwilling to take the step, if I'm unwilling to step out of my comfort zone, if I'm unwilling to leave the familiar behind, if I am unwilling to do what I know God has called me to do, if I am unwilling to walk in faith, if I am unwilling to step out on faith, if I am unwilling to write the business plan, if I am unwilling to pursue the financial security, if I am unwilling to make a plan and a strategy on how I'm going to move forward, then I know what's likely to happen. But possibility leaves room for hope. And as long as I have hope, I have everything I need. Yes, it's probable that it might end bad if I go backwards. It's likely that it will end bad if I go backwards. But the truth remains that if I move forward, if I keep pressing toward the mark, if I keep moving on in God, if I trust him all the way, then what could happen far outweighs what's likely to happen. I'm not going to stay where I am simply because it's familiar to me. I need us to get it this morning. Look at these men. These men are stuck. But here's what I like about the text. All because you're stuck don't mean you can't converse. Here it is. These men having to sit and sit around one another, having spent so much time with one another. Watch this. They have a conversation on what they might do next. Sometimes all you need to do is have a conversation with some people who have been in where you've been, who have sat in your shoes. Here it is. These men, they have this conversation. Here's the first thing they ask. Why sit here until we die? Here's the question for you today. This is just one that I'm going to throw out at you. Why sit where you are and die? Why sit in the same situation? Why sit in the same place? Why sit in the same circumstances if you know it's going to kill you? Why sit there and die? Why sit there and take it? Why sit there and accept the abuse? Why sit there and take the criticism? Why sit there and feel unfulfilled? Why sit there and feel like you're not worthy? Why sit there and feel like you're worthless? Why sit there and feel like you have no purpose? Why sit there until you die? Here it is. Why are we going to stay in the same position? Why are we holding on to bad relationships, either with somebody significant or with our friends? Why sit under emotional abuse? Why sit under physical abuse? Why sit under mental abuse? Why stay in situations that are likely to slowly kill us and kill our self-esteem and kill our confidence? Why sit in situations that we know are taking more out of us than are putting back in us? Why sit here until we die? If we go in the city, here it is. Look at the next part of that conversation. They say, why sit here until we die? Here it is. If we go into the city, then a famine is in the city. Yes, here they're talking about food. So yes, this scripture is talking about them trying to acquire food because they're hungry, and food is substance and nourishment. However, watch this. It is also symbolic of going back to something that lacks substance and fulfillment. Woo, I need y'all to get it. Here's what it is. Here's what these men are doing. It is symbolic of going back to something that lacks substance and lacks fulfillment. If they go back into the city, they know they're not going to get what they need in order to sustain them from the situation that they're in. They know they're not going to acquire the necessary resources to help propel them forward and where they're trying to go. They know that if they go back, the resources are so scarce that they're not going to have enough to be able to hold themselves together, to be able to nourish themselves, to be able to feed themselves, to be able to find fulfillment, to be able to find the things that they need to help keep them going and to keep them motivated. So it's symbolic of going back to something that lacks the substance to be able to hold us and take care of us where we are. Why go back to a job that is unfulfilling? Why go back to a relationship that lacks substance? Why go back to a relationship that lacks fulfillment? Why go back to a friendship that lacks loyalty? Why go back to people who already dogged you? Why go back to situations you know aren't going to work? Why go back to our old ways that got us in trouble in the first place? Why go back to an old mentality that God brought us nothing but pain and grief? Why go back? Why go back in the past to try to recover what should have been dead to us a long time ago? I'm not going back to what I know is trying to slowly kill me. I'm not going back. I can't go back. I can't go back. Watch this. There is nothing of substance in what you're left. For some of us, this pandemic is a blessing because some of us wanted to leave a job in the first place. The pandemic gives us a reason. Some of us have been wanting to start a business in the first place. The pandemic gives us a reason. Some of us have had a vision that we should have been writing and preparing a long time ago. And the pandemic gives us a vision. It gives us the opportunity. It presents us with the time that we need to invest in ourselves instead of building somebody else's dream. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with helping somebody else build theirs, but what I'm telling you is if God gave you a vision for your life, if he gave you a plan for your life, if he's giving you some insights and some revelation about what you could be doing, it's incumbent upon us to take the opportunity while it's here. We have to take the opportunity, and we can't sit in the same place we were in after we left those situations. Notice these men first asked themselves, "Why sit here until we die?" We can't sit in the same place after we've left something bad. I mean, we all arrive at the point when we have to make critical decisions. We all have arrived at those moments. Some of us are at those moments right now where we have to make critical decisions because those decisions are going to dictate where we move when this is all over. Those decisions that we make now are going to dictate how we come out of it. Those decisions that we have to make right now will determine how well we recover when this is all over. Here it is. I need you to ask yourself today, what am I going to do now? This is where these men were. These men were asking themselves, they were having a conversation amongst themselves, saying, we can't go back in the city, but we can't sit here. What are we going to do now? But I like the text because the text says in verse number 5 or verse number 4, the latter part of that, it says, let us go and fall unto the host of the Syrians. In other words, let's go get around some people who don't even know us. Let's go to some places. Let's go around some people who we might consider to be our enemy because we need to go to them. And if they save us, then we'll live. But if they kill us, then we'll die anyway. But the one point I need you to get today, the one thing I need you to catch from what they said is they were willing to take the step in order to see how it would turn out. For many of us, we're sitting down in our houses and we're stuck. We're stuck in a place and we refuse to step out and walk because we don't know how it's going to turn out. We don't know how it's going to turn out. The decisions we make now will determine how we come out of this. I need you to catch it. Ask yourself the question, now that I have the time, now that I'm going through what I'm going through, my situation is what it is. What am I going to do now? Do I go back to a life where I am unfulfilled? Do I stay in a place of complacency, even though I'm dying inside? Or do I pick myself up and go after what's possible with all that I have? If I give it my all, should I stay where I am? Should I go back to where I was? Or should I proceed forward with what I know I want my life to go? And that's the question. That's the decision that we have to make today. By making the decision to go, these men gave themselves the best possibility to be fed and to live. For many of us, We're going to give ourselves the best possibility to be fed with the nourishment that we need, the love that we need, the finances that we need, the hope that we need, the faith that we need by simply taking the step, even when the line is blurry, even when the vision is blurry, even if we don't see how it's going to turn out. Some of us, our best possibility is in the unknown. No, you don't know what's going to happen next month. We don't know what's going to happen in August. We don't even know what's going to happen in December. But there's still a possibility that 2020 can end greater than it started. I might be going through now, but I'm going to take the step because the possibility far outweighs the probability. Is it probable that this thing can last? Absolutely. Is it probable that this thing can get worse? Absolutely. Is it probable that this thing can turn out worse than what people thought it would? Absolutely. But it's still possible that God can do all things, that he works together all things for his people who love him, are called according to his purpose. There is still possibility even in the probability. I need you to get this. I need you to get this. I need you to get this today. I need you to get this today. Here it is. Here it is. Do we make the decision that these men made and gives us the best possibility to be fed and live? They exercise their faith and maintain their hope. Here it is. They exercise their faith and maintain their hope. In all that they were going through, they didn't lose faith and they didn't lose hope. As they journeyed towards living, God caused the Syrians to hear a sound of multiple armies. Here it is. As they journeyed towards living, God caused the Syrian army to hear the sound of multiple armies approaching them. And when we make the decision to trust God and to have faith in God, it strikes fear in our biggest adversary, the devil. When we make the decision that we're going to trust God with where we are, that we're going to trust him with our situation, that we're going to put our circumstances in his hands, that is when the devil gets worried. That's when the most fear strikes in his heart, because we no longer are bound. We're no longer tied up by the possibility of things going wrong, but we are hell-bound on going forward. We are trying to get forward. We're trying to move on. We're trying to go ahead with what we know God has called us to. He made us more than conquerors. He made us more than conquerors. He made us more than conquerors. There's no situation that's too big for him. The Bible asks, is there anything too hard for God? And the answer is no. This pandemic is not too hard. Death is not too hard. Sin is not too hard. The situations that we go through on a day-to-day basis, they are not too hard for God. But what I need you to get today is that it strikes fear in the heart of the devil when you trust God instead of fearing your situation. If we choose not to fear our situation, that takes us on a whole nother level. There it is. It angers and frustrates our doubters along with our detractors, while emboldening our greatest supporters. The decision we make right now will impact everyone connected to us. I need you to get this. Watch this. At the end of the text, the men make it to the Syrian army. Once they get there, there's nobody in sight. They can't find anybody. There's no man, because the Syrian army, they left. They ran. They're gone as a result of what God did. But here it is. Here's what I need you to get. They went back to the city that had the famine and brought the leaders of the city to where the Syrian army was. And everybody connected to them got fed. Everyone connected to them came up. The decisions we make right now will determine if we can bring other people up with us. I need you to get this today. What are you going to do now? Here it is. What you do now is you trust God and you move forward. What you do now is you pray and you move forward. What you do now and you move forward. What you do now is you read your word and you get the vision and you get the word from God, you get the revelation from God, and you do what you know he's called you to do. That's the only thing we can do. What do we do now? We step out in the unknown because we know that God has got our back. That's what I need you to get today. What we're going to do now, when you ask yourself, what am I going to do now? Do is trust God, and you trust Him where you can't trace Him. Father, we thank you. We give you glory. We give you honor and praise today. We bless your holy name. God, I pray for everybody under the sound of my voice. God, give them vision. Give them witty inventions. Give them the necessary resources to accomplish every goal, to accomplish every mission you've called them for. God, give them the tools necessary to get the business plan done. God, let them even make connections while we're on lockdown, while we're under restriction. Connect them with the necessary people who would help launch their vision for your glory. That would help launch their business to fill a critical need. In the name of Jesus, I pray for every church. I pray for every member. I pray for each and everybody that's connected to this live and who will watch it. God bless them immeasurably. God pour out to them everything that they need. Sustain them even in this pandemic. Sustain them in every other area of their lives. Touch their children, touch their husbands, touch their wives, their fiancés. In the name of Jesus, God, I ask that you bless them. Show them what to do now. Show them, show them how to move. In the name of Jesus, we pray and we thank you. We give you glory. Again, we love you. To our visitors, comment in the comment section. Let us know where you visited us from. Let us know where you live. We want to make sure we connect with you and reach out to you. Later on today, I'm going to go through all of the comments. And if you made a comment, I'm going to respond. If you have a question, I'm going to respond. If you have a need, I'm going to respond. So I'll be looking out for those later on today. I'm going to allow some other people to read or to listen to this message. And if they go and I'm going to respond to everybody. Our visitors, we welcome you. We pray that when this is all over, that you would come join us live for our live worship experience here at Centered on Faith. To our Centered on Faith members, we love you. We are always praying for you. We're going to be calling you and texting you all this week, as we always do, just to check on you and your families. Again, we love you. If you, we want all of you to give because we want to come out of this pandemic stronger as a ministry. So we're asking that if you're listening, if you can, and if you are willing, we're asking everybody to go to our website, centeredonfaith.com. You can give there in the giving section. Go to our Cash App, COF 1518. That's $ COF 1518. You can also give and Amplify. You can sow your seed there. We want to make sure we are prepared to move forward, full steam ahead with ministry. We have some great things that we're going to be working with our team on. We're in the planning phase. We're gearing up for after the pandemic when everything opens back up. And so any gift that you give will be appreciated. We love you. We thank you for joining us today. God bless you, and we will see you on Thursday. Oh, also, one last announcement. I need you to let everybody you need to know. All because we are not in physical service doesn't mean I can't still pastor. So here it is. Starting in the month of May, on Thursday nights, I'm going to be starting a relationship series called Make It Last Forever. A relationship series called Make It Last Forever. It's going to be great. I'm going to be giving you some great nuggets. So I want you to invite everybody out. That's the first Thursday in May. We're going to start this series, Make It Last Forever. It's going to be on relationships and dating because even while we're in this pandemic, we need to be prepared for life after. And we have to be able to work on our relationships even while we're going through it. And so we're going to start that the first Thursday in May. Let's get ready for it. Invite somebody to listen. Let them know, hey, Pastor Jones is doing this. I know we're in a pandemic, but I still want your relationships to be healthy. And I still want you to have the tips and the tools and the resources to build those relationships that you started before this is over. I'm going to even have somebody come on. We're going to do a Zoom, probably, or we're probably going to stream it live. But we're going to have I'm going to try to put together a panel where we can talk about how to build and how to strengthen a relationship even in time of social distance. There are some things that we can do to enhance and build and continue to nurture those relationships that we built even before this thing started. So that's going to be in May. We're going to start that. God bless you. We love you. See you Thursday, 7